look at the size of this thing.
Perfect. Awesome. So let's talk a little bit. So welcome here, Tony.
It's good to be here. Super good to be here.
Thanks for being on the show today. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Hunter Apprentice Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Friesen. Got my co-host, Jeremy Braun, and we have a special guest slash co-host. Muck Simons is joining us from Saskatchewan. How's it going there, Muck?
Great. Nice to be with you, fellas.
Yeah, so we got a great lineup for everybody here tonight. If you're watching us on the YouTube or if you're just listening to the podcast, thanks for joining us. Just want to give a shout out to Hell's Half Acre Coffee, Backcountry here in Fort St. John, and Kiln Sticks, the premium carbon fiber arrows. So thanks to those guys here. And yeah, like I said, we introduced everybody here today, and I'll just give a little bit of a breakdown of what we're going to be chatting about today. So I'll just kind of be giving you guys an update. I had knee surgery 3.5 weeks ago. Give you an update on that and what we've kind of all been doing in the off season here. And then we'll do a little recap of Jeremy and I's filming production series. And I know Muck, he was actually a part of that as well out in Saskatchewan there. And then we're going to talk about two kind of controversial topics today in the opinions on high fence hunting, good or bad. And there's also been some circulating in North America of banning wireless trail cameras and even trail cameras altogether. So kind of wanted to touch base on that because it kind of revolves around technology and fair chase. So I'd like to bring in some discussion on that. So yeah, let's so just an update with me. 3.5 weeks post-op, I had a meniscus repair. 60% of my left knee meniscus was torn, and I had it repaired there at the Acumen Clinic in Alberta in Edmonton. Things are progressing really well so that we can get back out in the field for you guys. I know Muck not so long ago also went through a bit of a surgery himself there as well, and I don't know, do you want to give us an update on that, Muck? What happened and how you recovered and how it felt hunting this last year?
Yeah, I had a rotator cuff and bicep tendinosis surgery late November of last year. And I'm easily, 100% plus, bounced back really quick. Actually, I was only off work I got the surgery at the end of November. I went back on light duties beginning of January, and I was back at full duties my physio was going to clear me from about March 24th, but the surgeon said there's no way I was totally healed. So April 21st, I went back, and while I was 100% and I had, the green light to do everything, it did take quite a while to get that strength back for drawing my bow. I worked that in with my rehab, though. On a cable machine, I really pushed the envelope a little bit when it came to rehab. I was doing the motions of drawing my bow. Weird thing is, I had a 4-centimeter tear in my rotator cuff, and my bicep tenon was really bad. But it wasn't drawing a bow that actually aggravated it. It was pretty much anything above my shoulder, sleeping, stuff like that. So when it came to rehab for me, I bounced back really quick. Like I was pulling a bow, I would say full poundage, so 60-70 pounds for hunting, within 3 months of my of being cleared to go back. So, and here it's been a year later, and absolutely feel like $1 million on that shoulder. I am having a little bit of issue, kind of the same thing on my left bicep, like tendinosis. But I'm good too. So I know what it's like to go through the rehab, I'll tell you.
Yeah, and with the meniscus, there's like with the rotator cuff, it's good because there's a lot of blood flow to that area, and that can heal quickly. And with the meniscus, it's cartilage, and so the surgeon was telling me after the surgery that he had to go. I actually have pictures of it. I might take a few and post them up here. But like there's this like almost like this planer looking steel bevel shovel in my knee, and he's actually like roughing the surface in my knee up so to actually like encourage healing, because there's not a lot of blood flow to this. Like I'm 3.5 weeks post-op. I have my follow-up in Edmonton next week, actually a week from today, and then hopefully I'll be able to start weaning off of crutches over the next 2 weeks and then start building the muscle mass back, because it needs so much longer to actually heal that area, because I've got permanent stitches in there and everything else. Because I mean, if I go too soon, I run the risk of re-tearing and like popping all those stitches out and everything, and then back to square one. So
the weird thing with knee injury like what you had as opposed to a rotator, I mean mine was pretty debilitating, but at least it wasn't load bearing. And I think with the knee you have to be especially careful, because that's, I mean, you're load bearing all your weight, plus if you're, especially if you're a hunter and you guys in the mountains and stuff like that, there's so much you know, weird elevations and angles and stuff that your knees have to absorb. So I would, like, for me, it was really debilitating having a torn rotator cuff, but I don't think it was even compared to somebody that had knee surgery.
Yeah, I'll tell you, like, last little bit here. Day one after the surgery, I was just like, Jesus, take me home. Like, there was so much pain that first day. My dad actually drove me down to Edmonton for the surgery. Obviously you have to have someone drive you home and all that. And I just remember almost just begging him to just cut my leg off above the knee. But you know, my dad actually had a similar surgery. What was that? Like 5 years ago?
Yeah, probably about that.
5-6 years ago. Same kind of thing, actually. And he even said, he's like, there'll be one time about the day after surgery that you'll just want to roll over into a ditch and just stay there, and then it gets better.
Did your surgery, did you have arthroscopic or did you actually go under the knife?
It was both. So he went in arthroscopically because the MRI, because the flap had kind of fallen back into its natural form, the MRI wasn't overly conclusive of everything that was going on in there, because it was actually sitting where it was supposed to be. So the plan is he had a pretty good idea, obviously, of what was going on, but he went in there with the scope first to look, and kind of, he had like kind of plan ABC depending on what he saw, and that he did end up making about 1.5 to 2 inch incision on the side of my knee, where he went in with everything and stitched it all back together. And that's the, like, it actually doesn't, I had like no pain inside my knee, like, at all. It was right where that incision was, where he had to keep taking the tools in and out, and just like all the nerve damage and the muscle damage and everything that happened because he opened it up vertically, and then he actually puts like an actual eating spoon vertically, and it opens it up, and that spoon actually holds it open, and you know the curvature of a spoon, and the curvature of a spoon is actually the perfect angle to feed the wire of the stitching and stuff in there. So he actually uses an actual eating spoon to like arc the wire and stuff in there. I don't know, it was kind of cool. But
I got a video, like they took a video of my entire surgery, and I know I watched it a few days after I got home, but I was so medicated. I was like you, the first 5 days is literally a blur, because one, I was medicated, but two, I was in so much pain that I wasn't sleeping, and I was really sleep deprived. I think if I went back now and watched my video, it'd be pretty cool, because pre-op, I watched a ton of videos on rotator cuff surgery and tendon and bicep tendinosis, but I know I've got at least 3 anchors that they pounded into my humerus, and then used these kind of non absorbing sutures, and then I actually watched the video part. You could see him cutting my bicep tendon. It was actually pretty horrific, because literally cuts it right off. And I'm like, there's no going back from there. But I think if I went back now, I'd be better. But
they obviously don't see. The thing is, I don't think taking people apart is that difficult. It's putting them back together. That's where you make your money. I think.
You know, here's a year post-op for me, and I'm considering getting my bicep done on my left side because it is problematic, and it hinders me holding my bow arm a bit. Like it hurts quite a bit. Not the way the shoulder hurt.
Yeah.
You know, the weird thing about the bicep is that I'm 51 now, and the surgeon that I had said that they almost do that to everybody. That's not even an option. When you go in and get your rotator cuff, they just sort of do your bicep because your bicep runs, or your tendon, your bicep runs through a little channel, and it's like a piece of rope that just rubs back and forth, and eventually I don't know, breaks down, and you got lots of fiber. And so when they go in to do most shoulders now, especially people that are in their 40s, 50s, they just naturally do so I'm considering going and getting my other shoulder done because of how good my right side feels, but I'm not looking forward to the pain again, I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, if you also did some tricep work and not just bicep curls, you might not have that issue. Okay. Yeah, let's talk a little bit of what we kind of been doing in the off season, because, you know, I know for Jeremy and I, at least with the show, you know, we go pretty hard. Basically end of August right through till November. So, Jeremy, you haven't said much.
No,
Talk to me.
not doing much. Just
farming.
Just working and farming and being dad. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Hey, and that's the other thing is the family aspect.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, our wives are pretty forgiving during the season, and it's one of those times where you got to start building the brownie points back up, so you got some in reserve.
You got to stockpile up here pretty hard. Yeah.
Well, you guys, I know that you're doing lots of the post production, and the off season really is an off season when it comes to the show. But you know, a funny thing that a hunter does is they always tell their family that, you know, like this time of the year is we're not really hunting anything, but it's not true, because I just realized that it's time to go shed hunting, and so while we're done hunting maybe animals, now we're hunting for sheds. So there's really no end to this, and I love it.
Yeah, well, and that's just the thing is, like, even like predator hunting, you know, lots of guys enjoy coyote hunting, and I know, you know, we had some plans to get out there and do some coyote hunting and stuff, and it was kind of like, well, I can't really do lynx and coyote and stuff right now. Like, I got to get this knee taken care of, otherwise I can't do anything type of thing. But you know, there's shed hunting. I mean, I don't know how you guys have been over in Saskatchewan, but we don't have a lot of snow. I mean, there's probably a little bit more in the trees.
In the trees, it'll be quite a bit more. Yeah.
We've got more snow this year than I would say in the last 15 years. Like, it's crazy the amount of snow we have this year.
Yeah. So you might have to wait a little bit before you find them sheds.
Right. Yeah. I mean, guys are posting on social media that they're getting a lot of fresh sheds, but you're right. The ones that have been laying and haven't been seen, we'll get them in the spring.
Yeah, and there was, you know, I had a train of thought. It's right here, and it's gone now. That's okay. I think with the whole knee thing too, it was a bit of an eye opener. I think that if we as a show are going to kind of keep pushing the envelope, that there needs to be a bit more emphasis on, you know, mobility and strength and conditioning and things like that. Like, I know the sheep goat hunt we went on this year just kicked our butt. It was, you know, it wasn't something that I was unprepared for mentally, because I've definitely done it before, but I think, you know, we were a heavy 4 weeks into our season before we left on this trip. And so we had put on a couple 100 kilometers on the boots already. And then to go and pack everything in, like, it was total backpack only trip, you know, no horses or anything like that. No, well, I don't want to give away too much because it hasn't aired yet, but it was one of those trips where
it was a grind.
It was a grind. And I'm really thankful that my knee did not go out there where we were, because that would have been a chopper situation.
I had a
Um,
kidney stone once in the mountains when I was guiding.
oh,
And if you've ever had a kidney stone, there's nothing worse than a kidney stone, I'll tell you. And I actually had one on when I was on the side of the mountain, and I thought they're going to have to airlift me out. I actually contemplated calling. That's how bad it was.
yeah, no, I've had it 2 separate occasions, and it's horrible. It's horrible, right? So I think, yeah, it's kind of been an eye opener in a sense of like, we're out looking for season 3. We're going to go after some sheep again, and some elk and things like that, where it's more mountainous terrain for sure, and then planning on a heavy pack out, right? So the sheep hunt's going to be at the beginning of the fall season though, so at least we should have some fresh legs.
You think about fitness and the industry that we're in, and I think lots of times we work broken a lot, because before I got my surgery, I think back to that hunt that we did with Dawson and early season before you came up for your waterfall and your upland hunt, and the guys were giving me the gears about my sore shoulder and shooting the gun, and I was getting ribbed pretty hard because it was a grind, shooting 3.5 inch shells, and my shoulder was like, I was almost in tears at times, and I took a lot of grinding, but my shoulder had been bad for years, and it's kind of my fault. But we work in the hunting industry broken a lot, where now I think about it, it's a year later, and I'm like, why didn't I get that done years ago?
Well, and I think too, passion, hobby, income, right? Like, hunting is something that, in order to be really involved with, you want to be really passionate about it. But at the same time, there's time constraints too. So like, you've got to work to financially support families and everything else, and then hunting.
And then hunting on top of that.
Yeah.
And then you're like, okay, well, oh man, it's like 9 o'clock and I don't want to go to the gym, or, like me, like I've tried many times to try to be that early riser gym goer. And
I do that every day at 4:30 in the morning.
And you know what? My brain, I can't get there. I can't. And, I've tried on multiple occasions, because I was like, okay, like the one time I do have time is in the morning, but then I live 15 minutes out of town. I do have a home gym access a little bit now, like, so it might be a little bit easier that way, but I don't know, we'll kind of see how the rehab goes. Like that's obviously first priority.
If I was to give anybody advice when it comes to surgery and the industry we're in, I was in a weird situation. COVID actually helped me out when it came to my surgery, because I was supposed to get my original surgery in April of 2020, and of course the world shut down right about then. Mm-hmm. And so they pushed it back, and I got a call in the summer for surgery in September, and I just said, that's not gonna work. I mean, September is like the month for a hunter. And so I actually asked him, I said, hey, any chance that we could do it in late November? Because I knew that if there was a time to rehab, it would be over that December, January, February into March, and then I figured I'd be healthy enough to start getting out to spring bear and maybe get away for turkey or something like that. But so if there's some advice when it comes to getting yourself repaired, if you have the opportunity and the job to do it, those winter months are the best time, because lots of times you're not doing a whole lot in the winter anyways, other than running kids around.
Yeah, and for me, I had an option to go December 20th or 22nd, and I was like, I didn't really want to be like immediately post-op over Christmas, because that kind of sucks for the kids and stuff like that. But anyways, done that, and I think, the biggest thing for off season is get those injuries taken care of, because like you say, we operate broken, but we don't stop. It's not like, it's hunting season's over, so I can just chill and whatever. Life still has to happen. But okay. Moving on. Last season, season 2, Pursue the Hunt. highlights.
Highlights?
Yeah. What's something that maybe like stuck out?
It was cool doing the mountain trip.
Yeah.
Different
that was
style.
new for you.
New for me. Different style of hunting. Doing more of a longer trip. Self-resourced.
Yeah, self-guided, self-resourced. It's definitely a different animal because you don't have anything that you didn't bring with you.
Yep.
It's not like, crap, I got to run back and grab that. And the mountain trip we saw a lot of game.
Yeah.
We really did. Even, without giving too much away, we had to alter some plans. And, we ended up seeing a good amount of game. And, for an impromptu, like an audible, I guess we'll say, it was pretty good that way. And I think,
did you guys hit good weather?
We hit every weather.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Of course, it's a mountain, right?
Yeah, well, it was kind of late season, end of September, and we definitely hit rain, snow, sleet, sun,
wind.
Oh, the wind.
Yeah.
Well, you know what?
I
I spent a lot of time in that part of your guys' part of the country through the 90s and 2000 guiding, and that's one thing that I always thought Saskatchewan had was the wind. But boy, I tell you, by the last couple of weeks of September and into October, the wind there is just unbelievable.
Yeah, like it.
I can only imagine what it was like.
Well, when we were at the bottom, it wasn't too bad. Like we kind of found a camp shelter and stuff like that. But when we spiked it, how many nights were we up there? 2?
Just one.
Just the one? Oh, right. We decided to come off. That one night that we spiked it up there, it was...
And then it snowed on us.
And then it snowed on us on top of that. It was... we got the full northern experience.
All 4 seasons in one day kind of thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sunshine.
Well, and I think, like, for me to recap it, I think, on the whole, we really pushed the diversity within BC that we could hunt. We did the turkey, we did the spring bear, we did the fishing, we did the bow hunting, we did the mountain trip, we did November mule deer. Like we really spectrumed BC, which was super fun. And then I was able to get out your way muck and for some unbelievable spring bear. We'll get into that in a minute. And but I think highlights for me. I've put some stuff out on social media or whatever, so it's not. I won't give away everything how it happened, but I think the waterfowl hunt with the Ducks Unlimited crew there mid-October. So we went a little late season, but 2 things came out of that for me. One, Dawson came out from Saskatchewan and filmed it for us, which was a hoot. That guy's also always fun and does great camera work.
That Dawson, he lives at about an 8 out of 10. Like that guy's like he go. I don't know a guy that's ever has downtime. That kid.
Yeah, like I think one of the best lines the whole hunt, and I think we put it in the episode. I can give this one away, but so we blew an axle bearing as we were getting into Williams Lake on the RV, and my dad's in front of us with his pickup because he had to carry on after our hunt. And we're all standing on the side of the road with our arms crossed and looking at the smoke coming out of this bearing. And Dawson says, "I'm not a mechanic, but I don't think that's how it works." And it's just like, we're all looking at this going, "Oh man, what are we going to do?" And then we just all like kind of just started laughing about it because it's just, I don't know, he brings. And then the second thing on that hunt was the species. Like up here, we have like mallards,
some wood ducks.
Yeah, if on the occasion, and getting to see divers and what are the puddle ducks, divers, and see, I'm not even really I'm not apt on the waterfowl as I should be yet, but that's okay. But just getting to see like species like golden eyes, like pintails, buffleheads, and man, oh man, like you try to hit a bufflehead on the fly, like you're 20 feet in front of that thing, like because they don't. when they come in, they kind of wobble like this, but they're like 6 inches off the water. And so they don't cup in like a mallard, right? They don't cup in and kind of just glide in. They come right on the water, and then they flare. I shouldn't even say they cup, they flare right as they hit the water and land. So to try to hit those things was, it was super fun. You know, it was definitely just a whole experience. And then the other highlight was obviously my daughter Isla. She just got her hunter's license this year. She's 10 years old, and she absolutely plugs a mule deer with the crossbow. Like,
That's amazing.
I really don't think you could have scripted it. And the thing is, she did all the work. She set up the bait site and checked the trail cameras. Like, she was involved in the whole process. And you know, it was probably a week or so after we got the meat back from Peacevale Meat Shop there that we were having it for dinner. I think we were having steaks, or maybe it was tenderloin, one of the two. And she goes, "You know what, Dad? It sure tastes a lot better when you do it yourself." You know, and you know, it was so awesome to see her appreciate the process, you know, in the fullness, right? And I think you know, the highlights was yeah, those two really stuck out. The fishing was fun. I'm not a huge fisherman, but I like to go out every now and then. But to be in the middle of the mountains fishing, that was unfortunately when you weren't on.
I missed out on that one.
We were with Hell's Half Acre, one of their owners there, Shane, and his daughter. We did a Father's Day trip, and by the way, these will all be posted up on our YouTube channel as they air, so people can look out for that.
You know, for me, I had an incredible experience of my son got drawn for a rare antelope tag here in Saskatchewan. This is before I joined the team. So I was trying to video it and help guide my kid. Well, make a long story short, he killed an absolute, well, it's the biggest youth antelope in Saskatchewan for 2021. And so he is so lucky. That kid is so lucky. It was amazing. And you know, just like I'm sure you guys have experienced in the field, and I know I have. This isn't the first time. I got all the footage of all what I was doing, except for the actual kill shot. When I turned the camera on, we were using a decoy, and when the antelope came in, I turned the camera on, and it just kept flashing air. Something happened to the SIM card, and or the SD card, and the antelope just kept coming and came to 50 yards away. And I looked at Ryan. I said, "Buddy, the camera's not working." And he's like, "I don't care." And I said, "Well, make a good shot." And he shot with his muzzleloader, and he shot a giant, like a legit 16-incher. It was absolutely huge. So I had the opportunity to experience that with my son. Him and I went whitetail hunting, and I mean, I'm sure you guys will talk about later the elk hunt with Dawson, and it was just awesome. I couldn't ask for a better year. Started off the year with Mike coming and then getting a great bear, and then my nephew Landon getting a good bear, and then I got a really good bear, and then I passed a really good bear, and it's been a year.
I'm gonna actually have the skull here in my office. I'm gonna run and grab that, but and then we're gonna talk about the kill shot we didn't get while we were bear hunting. We're gonna talk a little
That
bit
would be
about
mine,
that.
I'm guessing.
I'll be right back. I got my crutches.
He's got a hop along his way over there.
Okay. Get my headphones back on here. So here is skull of the.
Oh, it's beautiful.
And I'll just try to get it in the camera view here for people who are watching there. So side profile there. Yeah, you know what? It not like overly long, but it really made up in its width. Like you can see, like the width was was almost 7 inches. So it was kind of a fat head. Well,
Yep.
and if they've seen the episode, and it'll be up on YouTube shortly, the bear, like when that bear was coming in, we were like, oh, that's a big wide, kind of almost like a block face.
And a big belly on it. I remember having a big belly on it.
Yeah, it wasn't the longest bear, but it was square.
Yeah.
You know, it was really blocky and stuff. But I think the story more goes, and this is actually already on our YouTube channel. I made a little extra footage YouTube video of when me and Muck went out the day after I shot my bear. We had a couple of days in camp, and you know, Muck had this bear tag. I'm like, well, we can't kill a bear if we don't go to the stand. And he's like, absolutely. So we saunter into the stand, and I don't know, how much light did we have left? Like 15 minutes?
15 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. And
like your camera shot of it definitely looks like it's brighter out than it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't as light out.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just remember we were looking at the bears in the stand, and they scattered.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, oh, there's something coming. And I looked over my right shoulder, and I thought it was a black grizzly bear. That's how big this black bear was. Like, absolutely giant. And for those of you watching, I'll throw a link in the description for the video. And this bear's coming in, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we are going to double header this. And we're about to shoot like forget about Saskatchewan record, like potential world book record with a bow, black bear.
Yeah, I've been getting it on the chin about that bear for a while, and
always will.
Yeah, but I remember sitting in the stand that night with you, and one of the reasons why I didn't shoot it, and I get that all the time why I didn't shoot it, there was a couple of reasons, and you explained it well in the video, but I had never seen War Pig in the daylight before. Like he's never daylighted himself that I can think that even on trail camera, he was always a night or early morning bear. So one, I didn't expect War Pig to show up, and two, he didn't come to the barrel, and he was a big bear, and I should have taken him at the time I did, but I didn't know that I was War Pig, and I knew War Pig was out there. So the reason I didn't take him was that was the first legit day other than your hunt that I had hunted, and I had booked holidays off at the end of May and beginning of June. I did not want to mess up my hunt on a bear that I didn't think was War Pig. Now we can replay that video 100 times, and I'll be like, yeah, now I can compare him to the trail cameras, and had War Pig or that bear come to the barrel, I probably would have taken him, because then I would have been like, okay, he's an absolute tank compared to the barrel. And so I didn't know that was War Pig until we had time to review the video.
This bear was so fat that I remember he was jumping over like a beaver run, like a beaver channel.
Yeah.
And he was like, ugh. Like
he couldn't even jump.
He couldn't even jump. This bear was so fat. And I remember sitting in the stand. I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready when you are.
And I wouldn't do it.
And then I hear him say, I don't think I can kill this bear.
No.
And I remember going, I
didn't even take my bow off the hanger.
What do you mean you can't shoot this bear? I was in disbelief. And then he kind of went around the barrel. He laid down for a bit. He came back, looked at us in the stand at like 12 yards. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, if we get out of the stand, I'm probably going to die, because this is like a grizzly bear in sheep's clothing, like in black bear clothing. And then he turned around. You're right. He never came to the barrel. And then he went back around and he disappeared.
So I think the mistake that I made, other than not shooting him, was when he didn't see us until he came to come to the barrel, and then he looked at we made eye contact with him, and that's when he turned around and he kind of sauntered away after that. Had we stayed still, he probably come in. I probably would have taken him at that point. But I mean, I was thinking that was literally the beginning of the hunting season. I was thinking I've got weeks to hunt this bear. And both Landon, my nephew, well, when we told Landon that we passed up war
there was
pig,
there was a lot of curse words on
there was
FaceTime.
there was a lot of curse words there. Landon came up to try to hunt that bear, and then Landon kills a 20+ inch bear that wasn't war pig. And so then I hunt basically a month straight, and war pig did what he always did. He came at dark or early morning, and all that kinds of stuff. I never had him. But the weird thing is I can't remember, it was in second week or so of June, I did take a big giant bear. I took a 20+ incher, and I knew it wasn't war pig, but it was the second biggest bear that I had on camera. And I remember telling somebody, if that bear comes in, I would take him, because he was very elusive. Like, he came in one time and then he saw us and backed out, and I never saw him again. So I didn't even have time to give him a name. But anyways, I took that bear, and here's the craziest thing ever that happened to me. It's like war pig is watching me, because so at 6:45, I arrowed that bear because I had trail pictures of it. He ran off about 25, 30 yards, kind of about the same distance that Yura did. He did the death moan. I was shooting a bit of a video, and I climbed down to the stand. I went and found him because he did the death moan, so I wasn't overly concerned about looking for him. Found him, and I set him up. Like, it was getting late, almost 7 o'clock. So I figured by myself, it wouldn't be smart to go get the trailer and the quad. So I just set him up to go get him in first thing light. So I set him up for really nice field pictures in the morning. And I walked back to the stand, climbed up into the stand to pack my bag up, grab my bow. And I know all this because it's time stamped on the trail cameras. As I walked through it, took a picture. I walked out of the bait at 7 o'clock, and I walked down the trail, found my quad, and got on and got back to camp. Next morning when I showed up, I didn't get up overly early. I was like, there's no rush, my bear's down. So I had breakfast and drove back in there and went straight to the bear. And when I got to the bear, he was all rolled up into a ball, and like, after an animal has perished for a while, they get really stiff. Mm-hmm. Well, I had him set up, paws forward, hit really nice positions for field pictures, and he was all twisted up and all rolled up into a ball. Matter of fact, I had him facing north, and he was facing south, and his one arm was under his head, and like I couldn't even get him really untangled. And if you see my field pictures that I actually have, you can see that his arms are so rigor mortis that I barely could get the paws out. So I'm like, holy cow, something was messing with bear. Luckily, he didn't chew it or destroy it or anything like that. He just twisted it around. So once I got it packed up into the trailer, I went back to the bait to refresh the bait and pulled the cards. So I left the stand at 7 o'clock at night. War Pig came in at 7:30, stayed for like 2 hours on the bait, and then again was there at 6:30 the next morning. So guess who was messing with my that's Landon and I. Yeah. War Pig had messed with my bear, but been in the stand. So had I not taken that bear, which I'm very proud of, by the way, he was 20 inches plus. Had I not taken him, I would have encountered War Pig at 7:30, and then I would have got up in the next morning at like 4 a.m. and gone in the stand. I would have seen him the next day. So he's out there. He's messing with me. I don't know how he knows where I am, but we have a date this year. I'm going to shoot him with a recurve this year.
Well, and I'm going to come film it.
Sure, you're more than welcome.
I'm going to come film it because we have a date with Destiny.
Oh,
with that now we both have stories about War Pig.
So people can and I'll wear it not shooting that bear. But there was a lot of factors why I didn't know it was War Pig. I was afraid I was going to shoot the bear that I wasn't going to be happy with, and he didn't come to the barrel. So I had really no size. That was the first huge bear of the season.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I remember us talking in the stand when he's walking in, I'm like, that's a big bear. That's what a big bear looks like. But, and anybody would have taken that bear. You know, Blair, our good buddy, he's been guiding bears for 35 years. He said that that bear is 22 plus and easily 550 pounds. Like it would be one of the biggest bears in Saskatchewan. And, yeah, he's still there though. Like Blair estimates he's probably 20 plus years old.
I hope he's still there.
Well, I've had him on trail camera for 3 years. Yeah. But never. And I mean, I'm not one of those lazy hunters. I sneak in at 4 a.m. and I stay till 9 a.m. and then I go in the evening and I stay till dark. So I put my time in the stand trying to catch up with him. And I don't know, he has shown up on camera at noon, you know, when he's looking for sows, but it's so rare that he daylights. Landon and I kind of have him, well, if I can say pattern now, because we've never hunted later into June like we did last year. Right. And he seems to be more of a June bear. Like he really gets moving during the rut. So next year on Pursue the Hunt, we're going to have that bear on video.
It's going to be epic.
And maybe a big elk too.
Well, there's hope there. But you know, that I think that's a good segue into our next topic. We'll kind of get into our controversial topics here, because right after I was in at your stand there, I come to Saskatoon, picked you up, Jer.
Yep.
And then we went north to Twin Creeks Ranch with Derek Weeb and did some hog hunting. Now, I don't know. Well, I do know in a sense. So I'm gonna start it off here. There's certain aspects I agree, and there's certain aspects I don't agree with high fence hunting. I can see both sides. Now, without getting too much into it, people kind of busted our balls a bit with high fence hunting for hogs. And I'm like, you can't hunt them any other way.
Right.
And we weren't trying to portray that we were out there, you know, slugging it and we're on like some sort of sheep hunt, hog hunting. You know, the way that we were portraying the high fence hog hunt was that, you know, it was such a great way to go out, get some game meat, not paying a lot for a guided hunt. You don't have to be an expert hunter to do that type of hunt and still experience hunting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think, you know, I could see it's like, well, you know, they don't have anywhere to run, whatever. Like these pigs are spread over 2 quarter sections.
Yeah. But you know what it is? Is there's really 2 sides to that argument when it comes to a high fence. There's the traditional, you know, fair chase, wild animals, and then there are a large number of hunters that hunt high fence, but I think where they differentiate is the trophy class of the animal. So like if you're hunting for Boone and Crockett, Pope and Young, that kinds of stuff, then obviously you would probably snub your nose at a high fence. But if you're Safari Club International, or if you're just a father and son that like you said, that wants to go and hunt, that's why that it can get so political, because there's really 2 sides, and most hunters aren't on one side or like on both of them. They're on one or the other, kind of, is usually how it is. It's super political. I don't like, I'm with you, Mike. I don't necessarily think that well, there's good and bad of it, put it that way, and we can talk about both of it. But
you know, like, yeah, if like there's lots of high fence elk ranches, things like that in the States and stuff, and you know, if I want to go and pay good money to go experience high action elk hunting with a large amount of bulls, I'll probably pick a high fence hunt. Not gonna lie. Why? Because I'm after the adventure and the rush and being in the elk, but I'll disclose that it's a high fence hunt. That I'm not trying to like manipulate. Oh yeah, we've got this secret elk spot that nobody knows about, and there's 400-inch bulls out there and things like that. Like I can, like if you're gonna mislead people doing a high fence hunt, that's dishonest. I don't agree with that, or whitetail,
especially on a hunting show or whatever too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. But if you're after like that elk action, well, probably a high fenced, 10 or 15,000 acre ranch is going to provide larger herds. They can regulate the population much differently than in the wild, things like that, for sure.
I think if you're not trying to misrepresent what your trophy is, I think there's no reason to care if a person hunts on a high fence or if it's wild. I think it's like if you shoot a big whitetail and you try to represent that it was wild, well then you have a problem, right? But that's deeper than the animal. It's your it's your ego. You're trying to portray an ego there. Like some of the biggest animals or most sought after animals in the world is taken by high fence. Like I hate to say this and I could get in trouble with hunters, but lots of desert sheep are taken by a high fence in Mexico, and people don't understand that, but there's fences all around the mountains in Mexico, and those sheep are high fence per se. Now they're wild, of course. But yet people go to Mexico every year to get their desert sheep, and that's right. And I'm not saying that's bad, or of course it's not bad, but what I'm saying is, as long as South Africa is hunter heaven for hunters all over the world to go to in their high fence. Now we're talking vast amounts. I think what people snub their nose at is maybe 160 acre concession or a hunting outfit that they think that, it's just like shooting fish in a barrel. It really isn't, but I think that's what they do. Whereas these bigger outfits, high fenced outfits like in Mexico and stuff like that, we're talking 40 miles of high fence, where those animals live at. So yes, for all intents purposes, they're wild. They just can't go from one country to the next because there's a barrier.
Well, and I mean, you look at like baiting, like bear baiting or whitetail baiting, whatever. That's just, to me, it's the same concept, right? Like you're bringing them to you. You're providing a resource to them that they can't live without, which is food, and if you want to talk, like you say, smaller concessions, shooting fish in a barrel, well, then you would have to, in my opinion, you'd have to lump baited black bear and baiting any animal, baiting any animal, because you're reducing certain elements of fair chase depending on what you call fair chase. Because in a bait site, you're within a half acre, not even 160 acres, right? Like you're bringing them to you. And I mean, yeah, I get it, predator versus prey animal, whatever, like with that. But
I think those outfitters that have high fence too give their clients such an experience that it's not, I don't think that is debate. A lot of this comes back to accessibility. Like lots of those high fences are pretty pricey because of the quality of trophies that they generally raise on their farms, and they have a lot of overhead. I mean, you go hunting for a wild deer or an elk or something like that. I mean, the Mother Nature has raised that animal, but when you go to a high fence, they have their animals are healthy, they're looked after all year round, so there's expenses. So a lot of the high fence opportunities come right down to money and how much it costs to do it. But then usually you get to pick your quality of animal. I'm assuming it was no different on that hog hunt.
No, exactly. And
Yeah.
for us, like, how many times did I blow the stock with my bow?
Well, we probably tried 5 or 6
times.
Yep.
I mean, they weren't spooky animals. They'd run 30, 40 yards and graze. Like, they're not, pigs weren't very smart in that respect. Their noses are pretty good. But it still took me 2.5 hours to fully stock and get a hog and stuff. And yeah, you catch up to herds of them and you'd size them, because they're all pretty similar color. So you'd size them, and I ended up getting the one that I was particularly after, which was great. But it wasn't that I like cornered them into the corner of the fence, or anything like that. And I would encourage anybody to experience something like that.
just on the entertainment value and just a good time.
Like we had all of Derek's cabins are great. Like, they all have their own wood stoves and barbecues to cook at, and and he's also got bison in there, so you're hunting in and amongst herds of bison, which is a completely different element and very different for any hunter, really. That no one really hunts in and around bison very often, but for me, it didn't take away from the experience at all to know that I was within a certain boundary. And I mean, on top of that, hogs are extremely destructive. Like, his fence is buried, so they can't even root underneath, and things like that. So you have to watch the destructiveness of hogs. I mean, man, you could pretty much twist your ankle anywhere you wanted to on that whole property.
They make a mess.
It was a
if you break it right down to the basics, you're sustenance hunting, you're enjoying a hunt, and you're killing it ethically, cleanly. Really, there's no difference other than that barrier. And I personally don't have a problem with it. I mean, when it comes to hogs, you're right. Most parts of our part of the country, that's the only way you can hunt them. There are the feral hogs that are running around, but they're so nocturnal and so rare that you just, unless you live there, there's almost zero chance of ever getting one.
Right. Yeah. No, I think it's good because I think that high fence, you're right, the price point, that brings in a completely different element than a DIY hunt, for sure, depending on the species, of course, as well. But then opportunity, right? Like, if you've got the money and you don't have the time, but you really want opportunity, it's a great option.
I would think that that's the majority of their clientele, or that exactly. Like, they don't have the time to go to the mountains for 2 weeks to hunt a certain species, whereas they can go to a game farm and have the same experience for all intents purposes, and then go home, in a shorter amount of time frame.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're in the mountains, I mean, I think we were really honestly fortunate to how much game we saw on our mountain trip. But like, my brother-in-law and I, in 2019, he came up from Kamloops. We went like goat sheep hunting up in northern BC, and we didn't have great weather. We only had 5 days, which is not a lot of time, but we did a lot of e-scouting on Google Earth, and I have been in that area a lot of times. And I said, hey, look, like, let's go up this drainage. It looks like it's got a great bowl. It branches off into another drainage. Like, let's just hunt that area. We only have 5 days. And the goat that my brother-in-law shot was the only game we saw in 3.5 days.
That's crazy.
Really, right? So you can go to the mountains on a DIY hunt, and you could blow 2 weeks without seeing anything legal or anything at all, right? Or these high fence opportunities. Some guys, like, I mean, I would love nothing more than to get into a herd of elk of 300 plus and have bulls just rage bugling all around me. Like, that'd be unreal. And I'm sure there's areas in public land like that too, but up in BC where we are, like, it's extremely rare and far between.
I think a lot of it too comes down to the jurisdiction you're in, and if they allow game farm hunting. I know here in Saskatchewan they can. I think there's more than I'm aware of, but I know I have a friend that does elk and wild hogs, and I know that I've never hunted there, but I've been on I videoed a hunt for him once, and the guy hunted for 2 days for a hog. So I mean, it's there was like, I come out of that hunt saying this was as wild as any hunt I've ever been on. You're right, like Mike. We didn't run him into a fence. We didn't walk into a fence and say, "Oh, we can't go any farther." It was all contained in his land, but yet it was the hunter had an amazing experience.
Yeah. You have anything to add?
Like that's pretty
healthy.
Yep.
Okay. I've been reading lots in the news about trail cameras and wireless trail cameras, bans on both cameras, bans on wireless cameras. I know we're just reading at the beginning of this year, I got it pulled up here, in Utah, banning the use of trail cameras for big game hunting, not just wireless cameras, but all cameras. I know all three of us.
I haven't heard that one yet.
Cameras. Yeah,
that was a little while ago. It wasn't
beginning of this year.
Yeah.
The wireless ones, that's been a contentious with Pope and Young, I think, for a while. And I think, did they not just release something? Correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't it like a year ago they sort of clarified what they were saying is they're talking on demand pictures or instant, like that the animal walks by there and then it transmits the instant, because I think you can use wireless if it's not, I'm sure that Pope and Young clarified that.
I know it's like August before, you can use them before August 1st, but after that you can't use them.
Like in our region.
Yeah,
in our region, wireless cameras, like any transmitting camera at all, cannot be used for hunting after, I should look this up, but I believe it's August 1st to December 20th.
So that must be BC regulations, though, correct?
That's a BC. Like this Utah one is the 7-member board voted 4-3 to prohibit both transmitting and non-transmitting cameras. Utah is now the 4th Western state to ban trail cameras during hunting season.
That's crazy.
And I was thinking about this because, again, like there's always two sides of the coin. I mean, you can beat one side to death or whatever, but for me, I always thought that wireless trail cameras could have been the beginning of the end for all trail cameras, because you never have to worry about the people that are using them how they should be, right? You got to see, okay, how could this piece of equipment be manipulated for something it shouldn't be used for? And, I've heard stories and even thought of it, how it could be used. Like, I don't own any wireless trail cameras, full disclosure, but if I'm in a cell area and I set up a cam on my bait site or a lick or somewhere where there's lots of high traffic, and I sit 100 yards away and wait for my phone to go off, and now my target buck is in that lick, or my target moose is in that lick, and I stalk in there and shoot it.
I own
controversy with that.
I own a few of them, and like I look at it completely different. Like I don't, it's incredible. It's changed my baiting. It's refined it, I should say. It's made it better. So what it is I got the Spy Points ones, and they transmit up to 6 times a day. If you can set it for whatever you want. But what I like about it is it tells you the condition of your bait site. Like, you don't have to go in there and disturb it if you have bait there. You don't have to if your animals aren't coming, you don't have to go in there, pull the cameras, check the stuff, like, check the card to make sure, do I even have deer on there? And so for me, it's refined my bait sites.
Well, I think that's the way that they're intended to be used.
Yeah.
right? I mean, like, I think, I don't know, what's your opinion? Like, was it pretty harsh to ban all trail cameras?
I think we lump them all together. Yeah.
Because, I mean, like, banning transmitting and non-transmitting trail cameras, like, you know, at least with non-transmitting,
You have to put the footwork in.
you got to put the footwork in. You know, there is an added fair chase element to it because, you know, it is less easy to pattern animals if you're always going checking cards and scenting that area up with your scent, et cetera, et cetera. You know, I look at it and go, okay, I think banning both types of cameras was pretty harsh, but I think it sets a precedent, though, where it's like, on the other side of the coin, if you look at how hard it would be to enforce only banning transmitting cameras, that would be extremely difficult for the conservation.
Right.
Right? So if you ban all cameras, then anytime you find a camera, it's not legal. Well, if you find a camera, then you got to find out if it's transmitting or not and who owns that camera and yada, yada this, yada, yada that. Whereas I think they looked at it and said, look, if we're going to ban one, we have to ban both. Otherwise, we can't control it and we don't ban any. Right? Either we ban both or we ban none.
Right. And then you're back to the old trail timers where you have a string across the trail. Remember those ones when, you know, back in the 80s and 90s, that's what they used to have, is just a piece of.
We were born in the 80s.
Yeah, we weren't alive in the 80s yet, Buck.
But you know, I know that Pope and Young in particular has been really vocal on transmitting trail cameras, and I think if you even admit that you had a transmitting one, it disqualifies your trophy from making the book. Which I would hope you would disclose. I hope you wouldn't hold anything back. But like, I see it totally opposite. Like, I can think of my one deer stand that I have. There is times where I've got tons of action, and then there's times where it will go 3-4 days without you know, my target buck or a buck coming in, and I didn't have to drive that 30 miles out there to pull the card. And you know, it's exciting when a new deer moves in or what you have on there. Like, my bear stands, I have no transmitting ones because of the cell coverage. But here in southern Saskatchewan, you know, there's cellular service everywhere you go. Just everybody has the transmitting ones now.
Right. Well, Jeremy, talk about where our trail cameras usually are.
Buried deep in the bottom of a hopeless pit. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, we don't have the option of even having the transmitting ones, and I don't know. For me, I don't mind taking a Saturday or Sunday afternoon, hiking down in there and, you know, pulling the camera. Like, I have a card reader for my phone, so while I'm there, I can check them, erase them, save them, put them back, so I don't have to, like, hike out, check the camera on my computer, hike back down.
Well, I think it comes down to convenience. I mean, if you do that, that's great. And guys have been checking and putting their cards in a reader since cameras came out. But if you have cell coverage, you don't have to do that anymore. It literally goes to your smartphone.
Well, and I like the fact, for the wireless side, I like the fact that you don't need to go in there and scent up the area and disturb the natural happenings. That's the part I do like. But then, you know, what's that saying? It's always the few that ruin it for the many.
Right.
Right? Like, you get caught huddling 100 yards from your cellular cam, and you get your target animal in there and you sneak in there and you shoot it. Well, first of all, it makes for a terrible story, and hunting is all about storytelling. Yep. So it kind of sucks that way. Yeah, great, you got your target animal, but it's like, okay, you could still have patterned that deer and say, like, that's what I've done, is like, okay, these deer are normally coming in anywhere between 10 a.m. and 11:30 a.m.
You know, I think if you live under a rock, though, I might live under a rock, because I have never heard that. Like I have never heard of somebody trail camera in real time, telling them their target buck is there, and then they go and hunt it. Like for me, it's always like I'm laying in bed, and at 10 o'clock at night, my camera goes off or my phone goes off, and I get a load of 200 pictures throughout the day. I've never like. I'm sure it happens. Like I said, I must be living under a rock because I've never heard somebody say that.
Yeah. So it's like, it's just unfortunate that, when that stuff happens, and then, the lawmakers get a hold of that, and then they usually go to an extreme, to
So is that your belief of why this is happening in places like Utah? Is they're using it in real time?
Well, I've just heard of cellular cameras being used in real time. I don't know if that actually happens in Utah or not. I know in Arizona there was rumors going around that people would set them up at watering holes because that's where all the animals would come.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of timing those and things and stuff like that. But I know there's some places in the mountains that lots of people go moose and elk hunting and stuff that have really good cell coverage still, right? So there's nothing stopping them from going in there, setting up a trail cam, pulling out of the lick, waiting, going in there when they know that there's animals in there, and the brush is thick. Like there's no way you would be able to sneak up, really, unless you actually know that there's something worth going in there and waiting for.
So I think like the last bit of conversation we had about the high fence, I think this one would be a little bit easier to get past people because I think the convenience of the cellular cameras is what is the winning factor with them right now. Whereas like I think like I see what you're kind of leaning towards, like a moral taboo of have a camera in an area that has cell coverage and that you utilize that to harvest your game. I think that's an easier sell to a sportsman than the last conversation we had. But I personally don't see a moral issue on using a transmitting device. Now, I probably use it the way it was intended to be, and I don't even know if I had to set it on real time.
Yeah, like because I'm looking here, like for BC it says it's unlawful to use a wireless camera for the purposes of hunting from August 1st to December 10th, which covers our big game season. Like it doesn't cover lynx or coyote or stuff like that, but that does cover everything from sheep opener all the way until halfway through like LEH muley doe draw, like antlerless doe draw.
It's crazy. I'd love to see the other side of the argument on that one and see what the actual reasoning was. That, I mean, we're speculating and I think we're probably on the right track, but to me it just seems ludicrous that you wouldn't be able to use technology.
I'm just gonna. I had an article pulled up here. See the Utah. So this is off of Outdoor Life magazine. I like their digital articles. During the hunting season, Ottawa Wildlife Board enacted a rule change on January 4th, 2022, that bans the use of these and other technological devices for 5 months each year. Both transmitting and non-transmitting trail cameras will be outlawed from July 31st to December 31st. The sale or purchase of trail camera footage for data to take or attempt to take or aid in the take or attempted take of big game animals is likewise prohibited. Like basically, I'm reading that as like selling trail cam pictures and things like that. There are exceptions, however, and the government and educational organizations will still be allowed to use these devices during hunting season. I'm assuming that's going to be for conservation purposes. Private landowners can also still use trail cameras to monitor their property, provided these cameras aren't used for any type of big game hunting.
Right. So that's it right there. They're they're assuming, and which is I think assuming correctly, that the hunters are using them to as an advantage or as an extra tool to be successful. I mean, that's fair to say that that's what they do.
Yeah, I'm just reading through here. Yeah, so it doesn't. One of the most notable indications of where this debate currently stands is in the position that the Boone and Crockett Club has taken, which is that transmitting trail cameras give hunters an unfair advantage.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, the organization recently announced that it will no longer accept entries into its record books for big game animals that were harvested with the aid of transmitting trail cameras and other technological devices like drones, smart scopes, electronic game calls, and even cell phones.
Yeah, I guess on the surface I disagree, but I would certainly I have no problem adhering to that myself. I mean, I love them, but I definitely see that they can be used as an advantage.
The electronic game calls, that's an interesting one actually, because I mean they've been used for predators for a long time. Technological advancement in hunting equipment is a natural progression of our desire to be successful and effective and ethically harvesting game. But at some point, these technologies can displace a hunter's skills to the point of taking unfair advantage of that game.
Yeah.
So yeah, it largely probably had to do with the fact that in Utah, I mean, I know elk hunting in Utah and things like that are mountain lion, things like that are pretty sought after species in those states. And yeah, transmitting cameras, record book arguments and things like that. But for the everyday hunter, that does put a bit of a damper on especially using the non-transmitting ones even. I think that part I disagree with, I think. So, but yeah.
Well, hopefully the non-transmitting, like if they want to make it into the record book with transmitting, like they can't, I guess, but I hope that would never come to a hunter or a hunting place near me without like a non-transmitting one. You know what I mean? Just your basic trail camera, because that would just nullify certain species of animals that we hunt here in Saskatchewan: bear, deer. People use them for elk in certain zones, but
well, I mean, even like think about outfitters, how they use trail cameras to scout for their clients coming in, right? So like I definitely see that side of the argument as well. So I guess the outfitters have to be a little bit careful on the watch as well, because if a hunter comes in and for some reason shoots like a 220 whitetail, or whatever, and like, oh, wireless trail cameras were used.
Yep.
Wow, that's a world record deer that now isn't a world record anymore, and it had nothing to do with
that rule should be clarified. I think there's a lot of people that wouldn't even know that rule exists.
Well, and I mean, I just think of the outfitters, right? Because how many bait sites does a whitetail outfitter have?
Yeah, 40, 50, right?
And if you're going in there every day to check trail cams, how many deer do you think are going to keep coming in there? Probably not many, right? So I can see how wireless trail cameras would be a huge advantage for outfitters to ensure that there is game coming into their blinds or their bait sets without disturbing the area, because you can put a week's worth of bait out there. But now you're having to go check. I mean, you could check trail cams once a week, I guess, but it maybe becomes a little bit harder to pattern, or timing of weather or something like that. So, anyways, I thought it'd be two good topics to cover on, because there's always somebody saying something either way, and it's nice to just get other opinions and perspectives out there on the rules, our opinions of those rules, good, bad, or ugly. And yeah,
I think if you're a fair, logical hunter, sportsman, outdoorsman, both of those conversations we had really shouldn't bother you. Like, you shouldn't be staunch, oh, I don't do this, or I staunch do this, because if you think about it, it's still getting out in the outdoors and still doing something.
Yeah. What do you think?
I'll tell you what's a hot topic here in Saskatchewan, and we could talk on another program, is they just passed the trespassing law here in Saskatchewan as of January 1st. And I'll tell you, some people are losing their minds. Some people are extremely happy about this. And that, we could do a whole program on that in my province, because I'm 51 years old and never have we had to ask for permission. And I know other places and people that are going to be listening to this will think, well, of course, we grew up, we had to ask permission. But here in Saskatchewan, it's never, unless it's posted. And I mean, most ethical people ask anyways, but you didn't have to if it wasn't posted and you're within the rules of not 500 meters from a dwelling or a road, or what I mean. Like there were some very set out things, and we could talk about that, because I'll tell you, that is really hopped up the hunters here in Saskatchewan, and like, I don't know what it's like there, fellas, for you guys, but for here, we have sometimes we have 10, 15 miles in between farms where you're just out in the middle of nowhere hunting birds or mule deer or something like that. And it's going to be problematic. I don't want to hang my hat on what side of the fence I'm on, but I will say that here in Saskatchewan, that's really fired up the masses on both sides of the fence when it is that trespassing rule. Some people that grew up with it just think, what do you complain about? Ask permission. But I think there's lots of potential issues. Pay to play. My friend could go on the land, and I get it. At the end of the day, it's the farmer's land, and I understand that. Mm-hmm. But lots of times they act like the animals are their animals too, and and they're not. They're the God's animals, and so that's something we can talk about on another day. Is how that's affecting or will affect our hunting community here.
Well, how do you think that compares to here?
Well, you're supposed to have permission anywhere you hunt, right?
Yeah, like BC has had that forever. Like, do you think it has anything to do with like the difference of environments?
I mean, a lot of local hunting around here. I mean, it's quarter section per dwelling, right? So it's not like it's your 4 or 5 sections per dwelling kind of a thing, whatever, right?
Right.
For the most part, it's
like out in Saskatchewan.
Here, it's much more tighter living environment. As far as people per quarter section.
Yeah. There's definitely a higher population density of people.
Sure.
And then, we might as well talk about this for a couple minutes, and then we can wrap it up. But
sure.
You look at, I mean, when I was in Saskatchewan, the one thing that I noticed a lot is there wasn't a lot of fence.
No,
because you're right. Like, you look at some farmers, they have 10 plus sections of land altogether.
Or more cattle country as well.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with livestock
ranges,
within that as well. So you're not just dealing, I know there's not just agricultural land, but there's a lot more grain and agricultural land than cattle land. And
people own, tens of thousands of acres at a time instead of 160. So you don't have the fences set up. There's lots of windrows. I've noticed that, doing the upland bird hunting and stuff. But I could see, like, that's a big change. Like, I look at the geographical differences too. We got tons of brush, lots of hills, lots of coulees, lots of creeks, whereas Saskatchewan, especially southern Saskatchewan, you can watch your dog run away for 2 weeks.
Yeah, right? It's like I'll never win this one with somebody that's a staunch believer in permission, and I am too. Like, let's not think that I'm not the type of guy that doesn't like permission. I do, but my concern is in southern Saskatchewan, anyways, is these farms are becoming so big that one guy might own 30 sections, not 30 sections, but maybe 30 quarters, some more than that, 50 to 100 quarters. And what's the busiest time of the year for a farmer?
hunting season.
Right. And they don't want, like, this all stemmed from lots of problems farmers were having with people, one, driving on their lands, wrecking their equipment, like, or their fences and stuff like that. And then two, coming into their yards and stealing stuff and doing other things. That's my understanding of why this came about to begin with. Plus, farmers, they felt like that land was theirs and nobody should be on it. That's their right. I have no, I can't argue with that. But I see lots of issues with the permission thing now, because historically farmers here in Saskatchewan do not want to be bothered in harvest time. And it's kind of an unwritten rule, when a guy's in the field, you don't go and ask him, for permission. You just carry on. You just don't bother farmers when they're but now there's going to be hundreds of people asking them. And obviously some guys are going to enjoy that. That's what they wanted, and that they're going to get that. But there's guys going to be signs at the end of their driveway that says, "Don't enter. I don't even want to talk to you."
Yeah.
And he might own 30 quarters of land. And
so here's another thing. How much public land is there compared to private land?
Not very much. So we used to have what they called community pastures, and now that the government had sold those off to community co-ops. So like the three of us could own a former community pasture and turn it into a co-op, and that's where we range our animals at. So it's almost semi-privatized our public lands. Yeah. And so and this is my perspective of it. Somebody that was on the other side might articulate it a little bit better about the reasons they wanted that. And I mean, and I know at the end of the day, they just say, it's my land, stay off it unless you ask. I get it. And moving forward, I have to adhere to that. But I'll give you an example. So Mike, you came down here and upland hunted, and we weren't destroying anybody's land. Matter of fact, we asked for permission. But you think of it, so you're driving down southern Saskatchewan, and a bunch of Huns or pheasant fly over the road, and they go 400 or 500 meters into the field into a slough. No houses around, nobody around. You unload your dogs, and you went and you got those birds if it wasn't posted, and you carried on. Now those birds fly over the road, and you have to try tracking down a farmer down in the busiest time of his year. And whereas now, I think what maybe would have been a good solution to the problem here in Saskatchewan would have made hunting on foot only. And that would at least have been a start, because that would have stopped the guys from bombing across somebody's land or going through their fences and undoing their fences and leaving them down or anything like that. I mean, that could have at least been an alternative, because I think about me and Ryan, for example. I've been raising Ryan to hunt. Most farmers wouldn't be mad about me and my 15-year-old son walking across there if we're not infringing where his farmyard at. Now, there again, it's his land. He can tell me to get off. I get it. And our side of it used to be, then put signs up and I won't even bother you.
Yeah.
And they're like, we don't have time to put signs up, and people tear them down and stuff like that. And I get it. Like, there's bad apples out there. But if I see a land that says no hunting and I don't know whose it is, I just carry on. Yeah. And sometimes if I know that so-and-so owns that quarter, I'll call them and say, hey, it's Muck, I grew up in the area. Do you mind if I go in there with those birds? Most times they say sure, and they're happy to hear that that you asked their permission. Yeah. Let's get this straight. I always believe in asking permission. I'm just saying, for those places like Jeremy, you're saying cattle. We do have a ton of cattle farming here, but we also have the rotation farming where they ate out one pasture and they're moved to a different one. So you have vast amounts of lands that aren't being used for cattle farming, and that could be used, for archery, hunting, or whatever. Now, I think guys are going to be annoyed by all the inundation, and I'm afraid to say it, but there's going to be pay to play, where they're going to be because here in Saskatchewan, non-resident hunters can hunt over the counter here for certain species. So they could technically grease the farmers now, and that's illegal outfitting. But I know that it's going to happen. I just know it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, like that, and that's the difference here. Like when I asked about the private versus public, we've got a ton of crown land.
Mhm.
So you don't have to hunt
Right.
private land,
100%.
right?
We
You've
do.
got lots of private land to hunt on.
It's funny you should bring that up because somebody and I were just talking about that the other day about the wildlife lands that we do have here in Saskatchewan are just going to get crushed. Because now, before, the people didn't want to walk into those wildlife lands, but now that's going to be their only alternative.
Yeah.
So they're gonna crush our wildlife lands,
Wow.
like the small pockets of it.
I hope that they see that though, and then back off and maybe do like the on foot thing, or at least like within the iHunter app or something like that, disclose farmer contact information so that you can contact the landowner. Like if you're going to make that a rule that you have to contact the landowner, you have to make a way to be able to contact the landowner.
Yeah, here in Saskatchewan, I think they're trying to develop a couple apps that are going to be like that. And I mean, I hope that works out. I hope that pans out. I will get the app. I will ask for permission. But and I guarantee there's going to be somebody watching this podcast that's going to be like, "What is he talking about? It's my land. I can say who wants it." I agree with that. It's their land. They can tell who wants to be on there or wants to know who's on there. I've never said that. It's just it's different here in Saskatchewan than it might be, say, for you guys. Other than the fact that it's their land, and I get it. If they don't want me on there, I understand that.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Just like, I'm a police officer, so I deal with a lot of bad apples in my job. It's not some of these laws aren't going to stop the bad apples. They're still going to be the guys that are going to be driving in the fields. They're still the ones that are going to be shooting off the roads. They're still going to do their thing because they don't listen to the laws to begin with.
Yeah,
but it's really going to hamper, a father and son or something like that won't have that access to that land that they might have had access before. Yeah. And so like that's one of the things that sucks about regulations like this is it isn't stop that guy, a guy that would have done it anyways.
Yeah. Well, I think
I kind of went on a bit of a tangent about that, but I know that in Saskatchewan it's really a hot topic, and when it comes to hunting, like we haven't experienced that yet because it just came in January 1st. And you know what, fellas? Another thing that you probably don't know here with this new law is that it affects like snowmobilers and quads and everything. So anybody that used to just fire the sled up and go across fields sledding technically now have to have permission.
Right.
So I mean, how many people are going to actually do that?
Well, I think this would be a great topic to follow up on now after this hunting season.
Right. Yeah. And I'd be gladly tell you how it went.
And keep your ear to the ground on what you're hearing from other hunters, other landowners, maybe that you're asking permission from. Like, oh yeah, you're the 10,000th person to ask me this week or whatever. And maybe get some data on like if it's actually working or not. Right. But I think we covered lots of topic today. And I really appreciate you being on the show, Muck.
Yeah.
And Jeremy and myself, Mike, here on the Hunter Apprentice podcast here. So just make sure you go ahead, subscribe to our podcast. If you're just listening, check out the YouTube channel, Pursue the Hunt. The videocast will be also posted there, and subscribe to that and all of our social media channels, and keep up with Muck on social media. He's got some great 5-minute sub videos on different hunting tactics and tips and tricks there too. So thanks everybody for listening, everybody for watching. I'm Mike Friesen, the host here, and you are listening to the Hunter Apprentice podcast.